I think you have a lot to share with us. Please welcome.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I think I will totally switch the presentation I was planning to give, which was way too precise on who would be ready to do this or that towards the problem of recognition of Somaliland. The bottom line is nobody is going to recognize Somaliland. Why? Actually, tomorrow we will perhaps have the time to discuss that. There is only one country in the world, but it's completely useless. It's Taiwan. Taiwan is the only country in the world that would be ready probably to recognize you because of very similar problems that they had with their giant neighbor. The question isn't that. The question is, what is the non-recognition of Somaliland? What could it do to the existence of Somaliland? Because Somaliland does exist. You're the proof of the pudding in the eating. And you've got it all right. It started during the war. Now that I'm working back on all the situation of the war, what you did or didn't do with the Somali National Army prisoners. I mean, in many wars, these guys would have been simply shot. You shot only about 200. I'm not sure of the figure, somewhere between 200 and 400, which is nothing. If you think of the slaughter of Hargeisa in 1988. You stopped 2 civil wars after they started, and it's much more difficult to stop them once they have started than not to have them start. I mean, you've got all the marks right on every single point. If there was a kind of checklist card, you tick all the right marks. You're not going to get rewarded for it. Because, and that is the big difference with the presentation that Ahmed was doing. Not that I disagree with him, I agreed completely, but my angle of vision is very different from his. His angle of vision is, are you doing it right? What could you do to do it better? The presentation we just had on the health problem is a typical example. And when he said you don't have to wait for the European Union, you Swedes, you're nice guys, you can do it right now, fine. But he is trying to be programmatic and forward-looking. I am a son of a bitch. I look at reality as it is. It's not the same. Now, the next president of Somaliland, whether it's Mr. Warabe, who is here, or whether it's Mr. Musa Bihi or anybody else that I don't know, he's now into an emergency situation. This is not business as usual. You guys did a quarter of a century of wonderful business as usual. This is the end. Business as usual is not sufficient anymore. Why? Not because of your inside problems. You're just the opposite of Somalia. Actually, the reason why is very interesting, since you're the same people, same language, same religion, same culture, and so on. There's a whole reflection on that, which I, as a historian and social scientist, I'm fascinated by. You are the opposite, but similar, equivalent to Eritrea. The impact of colonization transforming a native society completely and ending up with a different product. But now the situation has come to an end. Not because of terrible inside, because when people think about Eastern Africa, they say, oh, some terrible upheaval is going to come from, no, it's from outside. Your problem is not you people, your problem is outside. Not because people want to destroy you, or please do not fall into these plot ideas and, you're not being targeted by Mr. Putin or the Jews or the Freemasons or God knows what, or the Catholic Church or ET coming from another planet. There's so many, when you look on the World Wide Web, so many of these plot theories. No, you're not targeted by anybody. The problem is you're completely neglected by everybody, which is in total contradiction with all the declarations of democracy. But do not forget one thing, democracies are made by liars. Because being a politician and getting elected means you lie to your electorate, everywhere. whether it's Mr. Trump or my own president, François Hollande, when you got elected, they're all liars. Otherwise, you don't get elected. I mean, sorry, you're going to have to do your little bit of lying like everybody else. But once you're elected, then what comes is what you do. And now you're in a very unique situation, because once more, you got it all right. All your inner workings are fine. And there is no plot outside. And yet, you're in great danger. And it's got like to be the main mission of your next president. The situation is to try, and frankly, there is only one way: blackmail. The world now is very worried about the possibility of what is happening into the Middle East turning into a major conflagration. I'm sorry, you're going to have to use that. And to say, look, we've been good guys, we're nice. We were an element of pacification, of smoothing, pouring oil on troubled waters. Okay, we did it for 25 years. That's a quarter of a century. That's a whole generation. Now we have these young boys who have grown, and for them the only country is Somaliland. They don't know Somalia. They were little children, or they were not even born when the war ended in '91. And we don't take care of them, they'll be Daesh tomorrow. It's your choice. And you, liars in Paris, London, and Washington, you have to wake up, or else you're going to have another pile of trouble. And frankly, I think you've got perhaps one little wedge where you can insert your finger into the soft part of the geopolitical landscape. It's called Djibouti. Djibouti is your entry point into trouble, and you have to go into trouble. This is the end of being nice guys. You're nice guys, you're finished. In 10 years, you'll really be Daesh, whether you like it or not. And you'll be Daesh out of these boys that, in a way, whether you want to or not, you will have lied to. Saying, yes, we have a country, it's going to be recognized, we have these nice democratic people, we behave exactly according to their values, we are nice people, eventually we'll be rewarded. And then it doesn't come. And when we are 25 and you don't have a job, then why not be for Mr. al-Baghdadi? Why not? You know? We even, in our democratic countries, we get boys, and even some girls, who come from the bottom of our societies. They are now in Syria. And that's a long way. And they were not even Muslims. They had to go through an incredible transformation, yet they did it. From you, it's 10 times more easy. I mean, it's modifying about 10% of the hard disk of the computer. If they can come from us, they can much more easily come from you. And frankly, you're going to have to use that, because one weak point of Somaliland is you're too silent. You're too polite, you're too nice, you're just the opposite, you're the anti-North Korea. North Korea every morning wakes up saying, we'll start the Third World War. And people say, oh no, not again, You are just the opposite. Nobody hears you. Actually, a lot of people don't even know that you exist. I was telling some friends that I'm going to Somaliland in May, and they were saying, oh, you mean you're going to Somalia? I said, no, Somaliland. They say, it's the same. So you realize the gap, the mental gap in the eyes of people who are looking at you. They don't even realize that for the last 25 years you have had an independent country working on totally different principles with totally different situation. They don't even know. So this silence has to end, otherwise you will end. And frankly, it would really break my heart. I was at the Ballet Gouballe Shir in 1990 when Silanyo left and Abdelrahman Tour came in. The next morning I climbed down into Hargeisa, which is the foolishest thing I ever did in my life. I almost didn't come back. I've known you from the beginning. And your own death would really make me sad, really. And this is a possibility. Not, again, because of your own misgivings but because of the lack. Because you are too polite and you're too silent. In an environment which is not polite and not silent. So I'm not saying that you should become like, another North Korean dictator. No, not by any means. And it is very difficult because you have the culture which allowed Professor Samatar to travel on his own terms. That's beautiful, the way you put it, you know. I want to talk to anybody, I want to go wherever I want, and I want to declare anything I want. Fine, this is the definition of freedom, you know. And it is very difficult for a free society to behave like a son of a bitch. And you're going to have to do that complicated act. You're in the position of Czechoslovakia in 1938 facing Adolf Hitler. And by the way, I don't agree with your Montevideo declaration, because Adolf Hitler would have totally fitted the bill. The Germany of 1934 would have fitted that bill. You fit that bill, it's not enough. It is not enough. You're better than that, and it is still not enough. Which is totally unjust. You're better than the others, so you have to be even better. No choice. Because if you simply stay what you are, you will eventually wither away. And you will wither away because you are in a vat full of acid. The region is acid. You will be dissolved. And by the way, it won't come from Mogadishu. Mogadishu are just a bunch of hypocrites who are dealing with the hypocrisy of the Western democracies and returning their argument in a totally false way. And they know it, even the people who are saying it know it very well. But they know that, and they use it against you because they just simply hope that if they can recuperate the north, you know, and recuperate Berbera and so on, they will make a bit of money and they'll have more money to loot, which is the whole purpose of the government in Mogadishu. So, they just want to extend their looting perimeter, period. Whether or not you live or die in the process is the least of their concern. We're right back to 1969, 1970. If you do that, you will somehow waste the sacrifice of all the people who died between 1981 and 1991. And frankly, that would be a great pity. So if you want at some point to go into the details of why would this country not recognize you, again, it is not a plot. It is not a plot. It ranges from the old imperialist view of the Italians to the benign neglect of the French, by way of the total ignorance of some country like Japan, who probably doesn't even know that you exist. And the question is, what you've done is beautiful. It's remarkable. I mean, you're unique in Africa, frankly. Because the only other peaceful country in Africa is Botswana, and of course it was a piece of cake. One tribe, a lot of money, little population, safe environment, none of these acid vat in which you're plunged. It was a piece of cake. Botswana is Switzerland, okay? You guys survived in the hardest, harshest environment. And you did it not by being more of bastards than the others, but by being nicer than the others. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. I remember when my last time in Somaliland was in 2010 for the election of Silanyo. When I wrote my paper in Le Monde Diplomatique, they said, "Hey, don't you think you're a bit of a groupie?" I said, well, it's kind of difficult to be around these people and see where they come from, what they went through, what they've done, and not to feel that, okay, well, this is a good stroke for the human being. And the question is, can you push it on? And to push it on, you have to be different from what you usually are. You're going to have to be nasty. I'm not saying you have to put bombs everywhere. No, that's not what I'm suggesting. But you're going to have to change your discourse. You're going to have an aggressive diplomacy. You're going to put some kind of a feeler, a connector to Baghdad and to Damascus and to Ankara. you're going to have to use all these things. Because they're the things that threaten you, and you have to do what you did during the war. Flip it over. The very thing that can kill me, if I can turn it around, I will live through that. And you can do it again. But it's going to be it's another struggle that is opening now. It is not the struggle for recognition because being polite to some Uruguay or being polite to Thailand, and they'll say, oh yes, you're so nice, you fit all the criteria, oh yes, we will recognize you because why wouldn't we? You're a very good Democrats. Forget that. That is if the world was nice and was behaving and was going along the rules that it proclaims to be. But it is not true. This is a big lie. So if you play by that game, you're lost. And you're going to have to change gears and to realize that maybe one day Bangkok will recognize Somaliland, but it will be because the Americans or the Chinese will tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, you recognize these guys? And they say, where are we? Yeah, well, don't ask questions. We tell you, and we are the local godfather, okay? Whether it's Beijing or Washington. And then Bangkok will say, oh, all right, fine. By the way, can you locate it on the map? We don't know where they are. You know, and so this is the program.